Our choice is the most powerful tool we have as it comes to human beings. Our choice is our freedom. Our choice is what makes us into who we are or who we don't become. At the end of this video, I'll have 5 choices or 5 guidelines of choices that you guys can make to maybe better your life. I'm currently trying to live a more productive and better life, and if you join me on this journey, I'm sure you guys are probably also wanting to live more productive and more fulfilling lives. So in life, we've all seen the story, or maybe even know somebody who they kind of went down the wrong path. They went down a path of maybe violence or crime or stuff like that. And especially for me, like I have friends who I used to hang out with all the time and we were really good friends, but they started making choices that kind of deviated it from the path that I was going on. And at certain times in life, we were on the same path, but it's like that picture when you see a fork in the road, and then there's all the scary trees that have no leaves, and then there's the other path that has all the trees. And some people, they decide to go down the scary path. And it's not just one choice. Sometimes it is, but it's usually the add-on of multiple and multiple choices that make somebody become something that they didn't want to, or live a life that they didn't want to live. In this day and age, technology's getting more advanced, science getting more advanced, everything's getting more advanced. And a field that's getting more advanced as well is the study of the mind and the body. And the body in itself is super complicated. But then if you go into the mind, anything behind the eyes, and you go inside your skull, that's a whole nother world. And it's something that scientists have been exploring more. It's something that just regular people have been exploring more. And it's something that's the spiritual aspects of like religion. Certain religions have been exploring a lot with. And so there's a myth. They say you only use 10% of your brain. Actually, the way it's supposed to be said is we only know about 10% of how the brain functions. There's about 86 billion neurons in the brain, which is a crazy amount. There's only 100,000 stars in our own galaxy, the Milky Way. So there's more neurons in your brain than there are stars in the galaxy. And that just shows you how complicated our brains are. The choices in your life are gonna shape who you become as a human being. And I know it seems like a very simple concept, but if you really look deeper, you'll realize that the choice is the very first step into anything, you know? Because without a choice, you don't make a decision. If you don't make a decision, then you're not moving at all. And even making no choice, you're still making a choice, you know? Like, just because you're silent doesn't mean that you're free to go, you know? Not making a choice is also making a choice. So make sure to make the right choice in terms of what is more productive to you and what you want to do in your world. There's been plenty of people in life who have gone through very trying and hard times. People who have been locked up in prison for long times that were wrongfully convicted. People that went to the Holocaust. And there's always a common theme with the people who don't end up bitter, because you can't blame them. A lot of these people, they end up as bitter people, and you can't blame them because it's extremely hard to be wrongfully convicted and do something that you know you didn't do, but you still have to pay the price. There's always a common theme with all of these stories about people who bad things happen to, but they come out on the other side as a stronger person. And that theme is that they don't find strength from the outside environment, but they find strength from the inside environment. They go within instead of outwards, and because they go within, they're able to find some type of satisfaction or some type of joy in their life, and they're able to overcome their situation, whatever it is. There's a million good examples of this, but I grabbed 2 examples. My first example is of this girl. Her name was Edith Edgar, and she was a Jew in World War II. When she went to the concentration camp, she was 16 years old and she was a ballerina. She got sent to Auschwitz. And if you guys, I'm sure everyone's heard about Auschwitz, but Auschwitz was like the death camp. Like 6 million Jews died in World War II, and 1 million of those Jews died in Auschwitz. So 1/6 of the Jews that died in World War II were killed in Auschwitz. She went to the camp, she got sent to the camp with her family and parents. On arrival, her parents got separated into one line, and she got separated to the other line. The line that her parents got separated to was the line to the gas chamber. So her parents got gassed right away. And then it was just Edith and her sister in this other line, and they stuck together through the whole thing. By the time the 71st Infantry came to Auschwitz to liberate her, they found her in a pile of dead bodies, and she was alive, and they pulled her out, and she was just left for dead. You would think that this lady would have a lot of resentment towards Germany and towards everything that happened to her, but if you watch interviews with her or you see anything about like what she does, she is like she's like a lighthouse. She's a light source. She's just so powerful, and she's so powerful, but she's also so nice. And one of the things that Edith remembers from the traumatizing experience was when they first got to the camp, she ran to her mom. She's like, "Mom, what's going on?" And her mom was like, "Listen, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen to us. We don't know what's about to happen, but just remember this one thing. They can't put anything into your mind, you know?" And what she meant like that is what you put into your mind is solely up to you. And then Edith took that to heart. And that little bit of advice made her into the strong woman she is. She was also a very petite human being, but so she went to America with a husband and she settled down. And then her husband was like providing, so she had a kid. And the doctor was like, "Hey, you can't have this kid." And she didn't believe it. She's like, "No, no way. Like, you can't tell me I'm not going to have this kid." And she ended up having the kid. And then on top of that, at age 40, she went to school and she became a psychologist. And all of this happened because of all the choices she made in her life, you know? She could have been bitter and resentful her whole life, but it wouldn't have gotten her very far in life. But instead, she took her situation in Auschwitz as a way of like enlightenment. Because through great pain can become great change. If you're able to harness the pain in a way to create change within yourself, it's a very powerful tool. And Edith was able to harness this tool through her power of choice. It's important that you realize what type of person you are. And not so much, well, that is important, but what I mean by that is what type of mindset do you have in this world? Do you have a growth mindset or do you have a fixed mindset? When you want to do something in life, do you do it or do you talk to yourself being like, "I couldn't do that, like that's crazy, like that's embarrassing, why would I want to do that? I would look stupid if I did that." Because that is a fixed mindset. And with a fixed mindset, your reality won't really change. Because if you want to change your reality, you have to do something that you've never done before. And if you're not willing to do something that you've never done before, then change will never come. So you're like kind of like swimming in water, staying in the same place forever and ever. And that is personally something that I don't want to do at all. I'm okay with being content with what I have, but also as a human being, I want to improve my life and improve who I am as a person. Someone with a growth mindset is the exact opposite. Someone with a growth mindset's like, "Hey, I see a lot of people are doing this YouTube stuff. Maybe I should start doing YouTube." It's just important to realize what type of mindset you have. You know, if you're always stepping out of your comfort zone, if you're always taking on challenges, if you're always kind of trying to test yourself in certain ways, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to be like David Goggins where you try to kill yourself almost every single day, you know? Everyone has their own limits, and you just need to find your own limits and then slowly just kind of push yourself out of those limits day by day, you know? Do something that you don't like to do. That's a great way to build discipline, and it's a great way to just kind of like make yourself a little tougher, you know, because doing stuff you don't like sucks. Nobody likes it. So when you do those type of things, it makes that suck a little less, and then you can apply that mentality to other things you do in life, and they translate, you know. If you do really hard workouts, the rest of your day can be a lot easier. As human beings, we're constantly evolving, and everyone has their own path. But my path personally is to continue to evolve. I don't ever want to be like in a place where I'm not getting better at something, where I'm not evolving. Yeah. Basically, I'm a big believer in action, and I can't tell the future, but I don't think there ever will be a time where I won't take action to do something for me or my life. All right, my second example of people who really kind of understood the power of choice was this man named Viktor Frankl. And I'm sure some of you have heard of him, but he wrote this book called A Man's Search for Meaning. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it to anybody. It's not that big of a read, and it's super deep. He also was a Jew in World War II, and he got sent to Auschwitz. The whole book talks about his journey and the insights that he realized. And he says in the book he could tell the people who still had hope in them, because the people who still had hope in them were able to survive much longer than the people who kind of just gave up, who were just like, you know what, I'm done. Like, just kill me, just murder me. Like, I have nothing to live for. Those people died off way quicker than the people who had hope in their lives. There's a saying, and the saying is that pressure either creates diamonds or it busts pipes. And Auschwitz, I mean, that's pressure. That's a lot of pressure. Viktor Frankl, it could have been a place for him to become really bitter and sour, and he could have just taken it. He could have made the choice, handle the situation a different way, but he didn't. He decided to help out his fellow comrades, and he would even help out some of the Germans sometimes because he was like a psychologist, so people would talk to him about his problems a lot. But he says in this book, he talks about how he saw his fellow like Jews, like some of them would just become just evil people, and they would just like they would kind of like become the Nazis, like teachers' pets. You know, they become like Nazi teacher pets. And then he saw other fellow comrades who were just like they turned into saints, you know. And the difference was the choice that those people made, you know. The people who wanted to be saints were they chose for a higher purpose, whereas the people who were like evil, who kind of like betrayed their own people, they made the choice to only worry about themselves and make sure that they come out of it alive. Those two little choices was what made them into either the devil or a god, you know? And it all started with just that simple choice. One of the conclusions from the book that Frankl made is he said that every human being is capable of evil and good, but it lies in your choice to either serve a higher purpose or to only serve yourself. And that's a choice that we all have to make for ourselves. It's not as cut and clean as evil and good. There's definitely a lot of gray area in there, but it's just something that you really want to think about. And what type of person do you want to be at the end of the day? What type of choices do you want to make? You want to think about it like this. What type of person do you want to be at the end of the day? And then what choices are you going to make yourself into that type of person? And then I was just going through YouTube trying to find more information about the topic. And then I stumbled upon this TED Talk by this woman named Carolyn Myss. It's Myss. And she claims to be a healer for like 30 years. And she's worked with a lot of clients, obviously. She had a lot of knowledge on the subject. And her whole talk was about the power of choice. In her opinion, she said that choice is the most fundamental thing that we have as the human experience. Anything and everything that we do comes from the choice. It's the most powerful thing we have. It's our freedom as human beings, is our power to choose what we want to do. And then she goes on to say that the smallest choices in our lives are going to be the most major ones. Waking up early, eating healthy, going to the gym, all these choices that you make on a day-to-day basis is going to build you into that type of person that you want to be. Whereas sleeping in every day, eating like crap, arguing with people all the time, being negative with people, those are also choices, but they're also gonna build you into a person who maybe you do want to be, but it's gonna build you into a different type of person than the person who chooses to better themselves in one way or the other. There's a lot of big choices in life, but the small choices are much more important than the big choices, like getting married, buying a house. These are all big choices. But if you look at the timeline of all those big choices, I promise you there's a lot of small choices that came in before that big choice came through. So it's important. Like last night, for example, I just got back from the gym and I was really hungry, and there were some burgers in the fridge, and I was like, no, like I really want to eat those burgers so bad, but I was like, no, Ember, you're gonna make a choice to eat your healthy dinner that you make, because it's just such a small choice. Like, it's such a small thing, eating burgers. Like, it's not gonna kill me. Like, I'm fine. I would, if I ate those burgers, I would be totally okay right now. But I'm realizing that I made a choice to be healthier instead of eating those burgers, and that's just an example that happened with me. But it's the small choices that matter, you know, because those things add up a lot. We're all terrified of making choices. Choices are very scary for us because when you make a choice, there's a bit of responsibility with that choice, you know. Your choice is going to create an outcome no matter what. No matter even if you like the outcome or not, it's going to create an outcome. Don't be scared of your choices, you know. If you make a choice and it's not good, well, you learn from that mistake. It's like I heard this one person say, when you come from a place, when you come from a good place and you make a choice, even if that choice doesn't end up the way you want it to, it's the intention that matters, you know? It's the intention that you're like, I tried to do good. I tried to help, you know? And if it didn't work out, well, shit, it didn't work out. But it's the intention that matters at the end. At the end of this TED Talk, Caroline really breaks it down, and she breaks it down into five choices that you can make for yourself that will really change your life. The first choice is to live a life of integrity, which practically means is like you want to talk the talk, but you also want to walk the walk. You want to be authentic to your true self. You don't want to really suppress things, because the more if you just always keep suppressing, you're eventually going to form a mental illness or a physical illness, because your body, you're not living your true self, and you have to live your true self. And it's easier said than done. I work in a restaurant business, you know. There's plenty of things that I wish I could tell people that I don't tell people, because it's about having a good environment and working with other people, and that's great and stuff. You also have to know when enough is enough. An easy way to do this is just to be honest with people. It's hard. It's much harder than it sounds, but to be really honest with people, that's a great way to be authentic with yourself. And just make sure that you if you talk the talk, you walk the walk, you know. It's very important. I remember I worked at this one restaurant, and I worked with this lady who wasn't very fun to work with, but I always had to work with her. And I remember she left, and then we went to like it's a Fourth of July barbecue gathering, and I saw her, and she like came up and gave me a hug. She's like, "Oh my God, I miss you so much." And of course, because I'm just a nice guy, I was like, "Oh yeah, I miss you too. I miss you too." And I gave her a hug. But it was like such a lie. Like it was such a lie, and it just made me feel sick. It made me feel sick, and I was like, I don't ever want to do that again. Like that was horrible. I did not like the feeling of that. And it's just because I wasn't being my authentic self. But at the same time, if I would have told her the truth, that would have hurt her feelings. So that's just an example from my life where I was just like, oh man, that did not feel good. Not being my authentic self did not feel good at that moment. Number two is, as the type of person do you want to be the person that passes on wisdom or passes on suffering? I know you guys have probably all seen both stereotypes of these people. People who pass on wisdom and people who pass on suffering. And when you're dying, do you want people to be like, "Oh, Enver, he complained a lot and was never really happy"? Or do you want to have someone be like, "Enver, man, I remember there was a dark time and I asked him for help and he really helped me out. He gave me some great wisdom." I personally want to be the wisdom guy. And I think it's just something that you should think about. What type of person are you? Because it's the small choices. Like someone who complains a lot, they're passing on suffering. Someone who doesn't complain a lot, they're passing on wisdom. Because, you know, silence is wisdom in its own way. Number three. Number three is take risks in your life. Don't get stuck in your comfort zone, always doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, there are things like routines. You know, in routines, you do the same thing over and over again to get better. But usually you're doing that because you're trying to reach a goal, and that goal is taking risks, you know. Will Smith has a great quote. He says, "The greatest things in life are on the other side of fear." And I think that's totally true. I couldn't have said it better myself. When you take the risk to face your fears, a lot of times the universe will give you some like prize or gift, or you know, because the universe kind of recognizes like, hey, you just faced your fear, good job, here you go. It might not be what you want. Facing your fears, of course, in the beginning, you're scared, so it's horrible, but afterwards, it's always the best feeling in the world. This is the way someone told me once, and I really like the way that they look at the situation. They're like, imagine if you die, you know, and then you have like this book with all your memories and with your past lives too. And so you're going through and you're looking at all your lives and all your past lives. You're like, damn, damn, I did this life. Damn, that's crazy. And then this life, I did this. Wow. And then this life, I did this. But this life, I didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? Because I was scared. Because my ego was gonna get hurt. Because I felt like uncomfortable. And I just don't want to be that type of person. Be like, damn, this life, I didn't do it. Oh well, next life. Number 4, change the words that you use with yourself. This kind of goes back into like the whole power of words, but the words that we use with ourselves, they change our chemistry. And if you're using toxic words, you're going to become a toxic person. And just really think about for yourself, just like what words do you use with yourself? And like really just be mindful about the words that creep in your head. And then start categorizing them like, Are these toxic words or are these helpful words? And then you'll get a pretty good base of like what type of words you use with yourself, because the stories we tell ourselves are everything. The choices we make to use what words we use are everything. They also recommend to there's three really toxic words that you should get out of your life, and that's entitled, blame, and deserve. You're not entitled to anything. You don't deserve anything. And don't blame people for your problems. Find a way to solve your problems. These three types of mentalities are very toxic, and you should just get them out of your vocabulary straight out. When you see yourself in the mirror, you should look at yourself and be like, I'm a god, you know? I am a god. I love myself. I'm beautiful. These are words that are gonna change your chemistry so that you look at yourself on a more brighter side, more lighter side. Tibetan Tantra, they have this meditation practice where you meditate and you imagine yourself as a god. And this is a very old tradition and religion. And they even knew back then that it's so important to see yourself as like a powerful being instead of just like some person who has a meaningless life in this universe. I've lived both lives. I've been a super productive person, and I've also been a stoner who got high and ate all the food in the house. And I personally prefer to be a more productive person because I find that to be more fulfilling for my life. And that's what I do. I try to be productive and I try to do the things that I need to get done. But one thing that can happen is, especially like when I live with the roommates a lot, I would see my roommates and I'd be like, they're like not being as productive as me. And it would kind of like piss me off. But that's not their path, you know, they're on a different path. So you shouldn't let that your beliefs transfer onto somebody else. Because most likely the reason why you're pissed off at them is because maybe they're being lazy and you don't like the laziness that you have within yourself. And so you're getting mad at them when really you're mad at yourself for ever being lazy. And it's just one thing to look out for because I've definitely fallen in that trap a couple times. The fifth one is to be grateful. I know we say this all the time. I'm sure you've seen posters about being grateful and stuff like that. But it's more than just being grateful. It's waking up every morning and being grateful for just being a human being, being alive. You don't have to be grateful for how you feel, what things you have in life. You just need to be grateful that you are here. You get to breathe. You get to do the things that you want. Ram Dass has a really great quote. It says, be here now, you know? And you should also be grateful now. Be grateful for now. Don't be grateful for everything else. Just be grateful for right now. Don't forget to bless your day. When you wake up in the morning, be grateful and then bless your day. Even if you think you're going to have a shitty day or whatever, which is a toxic way of thinking about things, but even if you think you're going to have a shitty day, just bless it. Bless your day for just being able to be here. The power of choices is definitely, I think, now that I'm starting to go down this path, I think the power of choice is probably the most powerful tool that you have in terms of it's the most basic, it's the first, and it's gonna determine the rest of your life. And these choices add up. It's like a snowball going downhill, you know? The more the snow goes, the bigger the snowball gets, and the more momentum it gets. So you need to think to yourself, do you want to have a snowball that's going down a path of darkness, or do you want a snowball that's going down a path of light? Everyone to each their own, but for me, I'm going towards the light. And also just be mindful of the decisions you make in your life, because a lot of these decisions, when we make them, they're very subconscious. It's called that default brain mode where we just kind of do stuff automatically because it makes our life easier. Because if you always have to think about everything you're doing all the time, it'd be a nightmare for your brain. So we kind of start doing these decisions in default. What I would do is I would become more mindful of the decisions that I'm making day to day and start to realize like, oh, I just did this, or like I just brushed my teeth but I didn't floss. Like it's a super default thing, but if you start bringing attention to these, you'd be like, well, I should floss because flossing is very important. And just make choices to be more grateful. Make a choice to live a more fulfilling life. Make a choice to live a more beautiful life. And I'm going to end with this quote. If you guys know who said this quote, drop it in the comments. It is our choices, Harry, that show us who we truly are far more than our abilities. Thank you.